You're listening to Parenting Our Future with certified parent coach Robbin McManne, author of The Yelling Cure and founder of Parenting for Connection. My podcast is all about providing you with the tools and solutions you need in your parenting so you can create the family you always wanted. Hello, everybody. It's Robbin here. Welcome back to Parenting Our Future. All right. We need to talk about playing with our kids. It's so important and such an important topic. I have Alana Gallo here with me, and she is a teacher. She's a mom of 3 young kids, and she is the founder of Play, Learn, Thrive. Oh, I love that already. And this provides parents with the education and the tools they need to become more intentional about their children's toys and play spaces so they can foster independent and purposeful play that encourages individualized learning, problem-solving skills, and perseverance. This is so cool. Alana, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you, and I'm going to get you to show everybody the room that you're in a moment. So you may be listening to this on, on your podcast platform, but we also post these videos on YouTube and on IGTV. So Alana has a beautiful space, which we'll talk about in a minute. But first and foremost, let's just talk about why are we even talking about play? Why is play so important?
So I think the biggest thing parents need to understand is play is really the root of everything. So this is how kids develop everything from social emotional skills, cognitive skills, language skills, how to regulate their emotions, really everything that comes with being successful, not only in school, but just in general in life is learned through play. So, I mean, it's really the end all be all for kids and their development all the way through, middle age where they're 6, 7, 8 years old, and they learn through play.
Okay. And so they do that how? Like playing in what way? In what capacity?
So I think one of the biggest things, play is something that kids will initiate. So it's not necessarily things like, for example, when we might set up a project for them, or we might sign them up for a sport or a class. That is a type of play, but it's parent-led, it's adult-led. What we want to try to do is get this purposeful play, which is really just total child-led. Let them get into the zone, using their imagination, making believe, playing pretend, coming up with their own games, initiating with their brother, their sister, their friends, really without any adult interaction, so that it's really all in the kids. And that's the kind of play that we want to be promoting. And we don't see as much of that anymore. Just with all the structured activities and, everyone has the classes and they want to take violin and art and karate and all these things. And that leaves kids very little time for unstructured play.
Right. Okay. So really what you're talking about here is imagination, unstructured imagination. It's not a sports thing. It's not structured. It's just imagination. And look, I know this is music to a lot of parents' ears because they want to know, how do I get my kid to play more independently? I know I hear that all the time, and I know we're going to talk about that. So look, I talk about that all the time too, in terms of play and why it's so important, because kids make sense of their world through play, right? They process what's happening to them through play. And one of the things that I say to parents too is, if your child is struggling with something or there's some emotions and you're not sure what they're about, is use play to find out. Get down and play with your kids or draw it out. Something where you could talk to them about what's going on, especially now with school going back and, with everything with the pandemic that's happened. Play can really help our children make sense of what's going on.
Yeah. And parents right now, they might be seeing a lot of kids playing doctor, playing, virus, playing even, my 5-year-old has been talking about death and what does that mean? And what, does everybody die? Does everything die? And it's not morbid for them. It's just, it's how they really understand, like what you said, it's how they understand the world and how they process just the different things that are going on. So like if you take them to the doctor, the first thing that they do when they come home or before going, when you're talking about going to the doctor, is they might start to give you a shot or check your temperature, or, they're just, that's how they learn what to expect and how to sort of handle what's going on. So I would say parents probably are seeing a lot of that pretend play, specifically around the things that they're seeing, like, being stuck inside, or, seeing, having to see the doctor, having to wear masks, or seeing, that kind of stuff that they're seeing out in their world. And that's how their brain just processes everything.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, but also something we need to know about, because the child that doesn't play, that's a huge red flag, right?
Yes.
The child that doesn't play is that's just not okay. So that kind of leads me into asking you about the environment. So like, we've got to set our kids up for success, right? And there are so many toys, there are so many things. So how does the environment where our kids have free reign to play, and also the toys that they're playing with, how does that all work together or against each other?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, I think parents tend to feel like they have to buy, right? It's like, oh, what's the latest and greatest toy? Toys R Us, this top 10 toys, I have to have everything. And oftentimes we're buying things that are actually sort of closed toys. And so that means that the toy is doing a lot of the work for the child. So the way that I like to encourage parents to think about it is, the toy that you purchase or the toy that you have accessible for your child should only do 10% of the work, and your child should be doing 90% of that work. The thinking, the imagining, so everything from having, one of the examples that I give is, my brother got my son this chainsaw, like this pretend chainsaw, and it makes the chainsaw noise, and the chainsaw thing moves around, and it can only be a chainsaw. I mean, he might use it to like, lightsaber or something like that, but versus a play silk, which is just literally a piece of silk that's a square, that can be a cape, a hat, a skirt, a tent, a cover for a tent. It can be a snake. It can be a pond where you put your sharks and stuff on top of it if it's blue. So it's really open-ended, and it's going to give the kid a lot more opportunities to come up with things to do with it, versus the toy saying like, this is what you do, and it's talking and it's lighting up and moving and everything. That's just sort of taking that play away from the kid. So that's something to be thinking about. The other thing is, I have been working with a lot of parents who are totally overwhelmed with their space because of the amount of toys that they have and stuff that they have. And the first thing that I always say is, if you're overwhelmed, imagine how your kid feels. So if you walk into a room and you're like, I don't even know what to do because there's just so much stuff, right? If you have, even if it's like your kitchen and, you're like, oh, I don't even know where to start. How am I supposed to start cooking this recipe when there's stuff everywhere? Well, your kid feels the same way. So when they have their space, it's designated for play, whether that's, a play room or just a corner of the house or, different places of the house. If it's totally overflowing with stuff, they're going to be overstimulated. They're not going to know where to start. So minimizing, decluttering, purging, whatever you want to call it, really kind of getting to the more bare bones, and making sure you have open-ended toys are two of the biggest things. The last thing is just giving time and space, which is often hard for parents, I think. They feel like they have to always be there. They have to be near their kids. They can't, put them in another room and let them play. And that's really what we need to be doing, giving them the time and the space away from adults so that they can get into that flow of play and really engaging in what they're doing without an adult kind of overseeing. And, oftentimes we end up kind of jumping in or narrating or, oh, that doesn't go there, or, whatever it is. And now it's kind of like, well, we've inserted ourselves and we've interrupted their play. And so stepping back and just giving that time and space is totally crucial.
Right. So this is important also because of what you were seeing. So as a teacher, I want to go back for a minute and just ask you, for all of the parents that haven't had the toys that do only 10% of the work and have the, we had the chainsaw too, we had all of those things, right? Yeah. So what is the result to having toys that do everything for you. Like you were seeing some stuff as a teacher, weren't you?
Yeah. So, I teach high school and middle school and high school. So my primarily high school, but I've worked with middle school kids as well. But so my experience obviously isn't with the elementary aged student, but what I was seeing at the high school level was kids who were really only focused on getting a grade. They cared about, what was on the test. Was it right? How do I do it? They wanted perfection. They were afraid to fail. They were afraid to take risks. They really weren't self-motivated. Everything had to be, well, what is it in what's in it for me? If I do this assignment or if I do this reading, then what do I get? Do I get a grade? Do I get a check plus? And as a teacher, that's just so disheartening, because for me, the purpose of education is learning, like true learning, where you're really wanting to learn for the sake of growing and understanding and just learning more information and being able to think. And so I started to just kind of realize that a lot of that was coming back to early childhood, and when, birth through age 6, 8, 10, and kids really having a lack of time to explore and having the freedom and being given the opportunity to just kind of do their own thing. And, because we've become so obsessed with like scheduling and all these extracurriculars, and we have to push academics because we need our kids learning and reading and writing, and we're really taking away their time for childhood, which is where they learn these sort of soft skills, like intrinsic motivation or negotiation or how to take a risk. And if you don't have that opportunity when you're younger, when you're older and you're presented with a risk, you don't know that like feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, okay, do I take the leap? Can I do this? Can I not? You've never really had that opportunity to work through that as a child. And so then you're a teenager and all of a sudden you're presented with a risk, whether it's, at a party or even just in school, taking a risk, like raising your hand and asking a question that might make you look silly. They don't know how to handle that. And so they just like shut down. And so that was where I sort of started to realize, wait a second, I want to start to think about how to help the parents understand what they can do during early childhood, so that way their child grows into a lifelong learner versus just somebody who wants to get it done and, wants to get that, the check plus, because that's really not what we want as teachers in general,
Yeah. Well, and your whole point is to play, to learn, and to thrive, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the whole point. And so it kind of makes sense where our kids are living in this almost instant gratification world as well, right? So I mean, I've seen it, right? The little one in the stroller is fussing, here's my phone.
Yep.
Right? Instantly gratified. Whereas here's those little links that you can play with and chew on, different things like that. So yeah, things have definitely changed. And my kids are teenagers now, so it wasn't that long ago, but still I didn't have a phone to hand them at that time. So it's a little different. And I can definitely see where the easiest isn't the best. The easiest is easy, but easy has nothing to do with parenting.
I mean, sometimes you need the easy. Like sometimes you're gonna turn on the TV, or it's not like you're gonna ruin your kid by giving them the phone. Like, I mean, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But at the end of the day, like you said, sometimes you got to be able to step back and say, okay, this is definitely not the best thing to be doing, and maybe how can I find a way to do it differently moving forward.
It's just about the awareness. And I mean, I remember the time that we wanted everything to be so clean, right? Clean and tidy. We had a lot of stuff, but we wanted it packed up. And then every once in a while I would take one of the bins, we've all got the bins, and I'd turn it upside down on the floor. And then all of a sudden everybody was interested in the toys again. Right. So yeah. I mean, it's just so interesting, but really important to see also where this leads us in terms of in terms of our kids getting older and what you're seeing. And look, I think there's more than one factor involved in the way things are why they're not taking risks. There's lots of different layers there too, but definitely you're right. Like things are offered up so easily. And it's okay to work for it. And it's okay to be bored, like let your kids be bored. It's okay. They'll pick up something that they never play with. And, I mean, I know that when we were bored, we were just told to get over it and go find a way to
figure out. Like boredom is what breeds creativity. So I always tell parents like to embrace it. I don't think my kids have ever said they're bored. They don't even know what that means at this point. They're still, my oldest is 5, but I mean, if they're bored, then that's where they're finding themselves. That's where they're finding what makes them tick and what will bring them into like their own happiness and joy. If there's nothing external that's bringing that stimulation, then they have to sit in that and kind of own it and let themselves figure it out. And again, if they don't have that opportunity growing up, then what happens when they're older and they're constantly seeking something outside because they just don't know how to sit with that uncomfortable feeling of like not knowing what to do or how to do something. And I just think that's such an important skill for the future. Like you said, for thriving. I mean, as an adult, we get bored, but we have
really
to
fine tune your internal compass, right? Yeah. Okay. So I want you to do a pan of your room. It is so
alrighty.
beautiful.
It's not totally like set up yet. A. Sorry, I'll stand up.
Okay, so everybody who's listening, I'm sorry, but you got to check this out on YouTube. It's really
we have like these cube shelves we love. We have a lot of blocks and some rainbows, some trucks. We have some play clothes here in our kitchen.
So what she's showing us is really just minimal, a lot of wooden toys, blocks, and what I'm seeing too is really good for the environment, which I really like. Not a lot of wasteful plastic, not a lot of batteries needed, and but very.
I don't think we have anything that has batteries.
Yeah, and lots of books.
Flashlights. My kids love flashlights. Those are like such great, like little things like that. Kids love, like every day. Parents are like, "Oh, my kid loves banging the pots and pans, so I'm going to go buy the musical instruments." And I'm like, wait, why? Just give them a wooden spoon. There's no reason to spend your money. Like, that's a perfect thing, and I think it's just like this mentality where we have a society, like we have to buy. And, obviously it's nice to have some beautiful instruments, but it's totally not necessary. Your kid wants to play with the box. Like that's an open-ended toy right there. That's why they love it, because it can be anything they want it to be.
You are currently listening to the Parenting Our Future podcast. I'm parent coach Robbin McManne. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And please don't forget to subscribe, and I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating on iTunes. If you'd like to connect with me, all my details are in the show notes, and for a copy of my book, go to yellingherebook.com. Now back to the show.
So here's what I really want to know. I want to know, what does child-led play look like? What does it involve? What's it all about? How do we get our kids to do it?
So that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is to step back, literally. Just step out of the way. Let your kid be in a different room. Let them think of what they want to do. Don't interrupt. You don't necessarily have to be on the floor with them. You don't have to, set things up. You can just stick them in a room and give them a few open-ended toys and let them do their thing. Our playroom has gates because I put my kids in there and I close the door. Like I close the gate. And it's funny, my kids play so much better when an adult is not there. I think it has to do with like them vying for the adult attention. And when it's just kids, it's a totally different dynamic. And so giving them that space away from adults to just really lean into the things it's just whatever it is that they want to do. And they'll come up with these games. And, my kids play outside a lot by themselves because we are luckily living in a space where we have a big outdoor space that's very safe. And, you know, they came up with this whole game called Lion, and they literally just climb up a hill in the dirt with like, and clawing at the dirt. And it's this whole dramatic thing where they roar at each other. And it's like, I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we're playing Lion. And it's like a thing. And they play it all the time. They're like, do you want to play Lion? And they just have this whole fantasy that they come up with. And it's just, if I was there and I was like, don't get dirty, or, you know, don't, you know, touch that, or don't do this, that game wouldn't have come up. And so just really stepping back and letting them be and giving them that time and space away from you to lean into what they're doing best, which is playing.
So you got to get out of the way. You've got to not want to control it, right? Hard for some parents to do. And you've got to trust. You've got to trust your kids a bit. Now, but the thing is that not every child wants to be away from parents and are very attached. So what happens when your child doesn't want to let you go to play? What do you say?
So I think that some of that has to do with just like the upbringing. So if your child isn't used to being left alone, then of course they're going to be like, wait, what's going on? But if from birth you're giving them little increments of time where you're not there and they're kind of left to look, you know, from birth, like infants, like looking around and just kind of seeing the light and seeing the colors, and you're not necessarily in their face. And then, you know, younger toddlers and you kind of go upstairs for a minute and you leave them in the living room for a few minutes, and you're just kind of slowly scaffolding, giving them time away from you. So I think if that hasn't really been done and you end up with, like, for example, a preschooler who's never been away from you and you're kind of like, wait a second, I need a minute. I mean, I think you're going to have to just sort of start scaffolding that, like giving them some time and saying, okay, set them up with an activity, get them going. All right, I'll be back in a few minutes to check on you, and like, go away, you know, kind of give yourself that space. I think we oftentimes don't give our kids credit, you know, for things that we don't think that they're capable. Oh, they're going to need this, or what if they get into that? Or, you know, we kind of overthink and we think, oh, they can't handle that. You know, they're only 18 months. They can't handle being alone, and we have to give that, like you said, we have to trust them. We have to give them that time. And it might take longer, you know, you might need to practice it, and make sure, like, if you tell them, oh, I'll be back in a few minutes, then you come back and then you check in, and then, okay, I'm going to go and give them something specific. I'm going to go fold the laundry and then I'll be back, you know, and then when they come to you, no, I'm not done. I'll be back. And you kind of have to force it a little bit, you know, especially if they've grown to always having you there. But I think the nice thing is, kids thrive when they're given time and space and that responsibility. I think that they sense that independence and they thrive on that. I mean, all kids, like toddlers, that's why they're pushing boundaries and they're saying no, because they want to be independent. They want that. And it's just like that natural instinct. And so if we can allow them the time and the space to tap into that, then I think that a lot of parents would be sort of shocked at how great their kids are at playing by themselves if they were given the time and space, if that makes sense.
I think that's a really important thing to say, is to definitely give your child some space and to have some faith and trust in them. And that also speaks to parents who sort of helicopter parent their children, because that's coming not from a place of trust, that's coming from fear, you know, and we don't make good decisions when we're in fear. And that also does not allow your child to have any confidence in their own decisions and their own self. So this really does so many more things. It shows that you have confidence in your child too. And that's important to building a strong foundation for your child, right? And this is one of the building blocks to thriving, right? So this is all really, really important. And we're not talking about neglecting your kids. We're talking about giving them space away from us. And, you know, it's so funny. There's two things that come to mind for me. One is there was a shopping mall that we always went to as kids, and they had the kids' play area, which was literally Sounds terrible, but it was literally like a sunken in pit that was carpeted from the bottom all the way up to the top. And that was where you let your kids play. And you just ran around, you played, you didn't have to do anything other than that. But I also know that, it is amazing when you see kids and they have an open space, just a plain open space, whether it's a field or it's a gymnasium or whatever, they just run and spin and dance and laugh, and it's beautiful. So let's remember that there is a lot of joy and simplicity, right?
Yes.
That we have in us enough. We have enough. Our kids have enough, right? And they are almost so much smarter than us, so much more tuned in.
They are. They're little, I say, like, they're little people. They don't need big things. They don't need big spaces. They don't need, so much stuff. They really are happy with just being near you. And like I said, your kid will play with pots and pans in a box. You definitely don't need all the educational toys. That's not necessary. They will learn books. Books is the one thing that you need to have for your kid. But other than that, it's really, they'll play with anything. They'll play with, a spoon and a cup of water. They'll sit there and scoop the water out for 45 minutes, and then we're like, wait, okay, that's fun, that'll keep them busy.
It's not fun if you're like, no, don't get the water everywhere. I have to keep this up, right? You gotta let some stuff go here.
And the thing that is then give them the cup of water with the spoon and a paper towel, right? So then it's okay, it's that practical life. So you're allowed, you play, you do your thing, you make your mess, and then we're gonna learn how to clean it up. So then that way, as a parent, you're not following them around dealing with every tiny little mess. I mean, my kids vacuum up after themselves. They clean up if they spill water. They have to get their own, spoon, their own cup for dinner. They're like, can I have water? I'm like, you know how to get water? You know where the cups are? You can get your own water, and they're 5 and 3 and they're like, oh yeah, okay. And just, they like that responsibility. So it's not like you're,
I think the fact that you just said that your kids will vacuum up after themselves is enough for people to think that you say seriously and understand you're an authority in what you're saying. If you're going to do that now and they're 5 and under, okay, you know your stuff. You
try to involve them in all the practical life stuff. They help fold the laundry. They wash dishes. They do the straws with the little straw cleaners. They love that. They'll sit there for 40 minutes and clean the straws. I'm like, okay. This is why we had kids, right? To do to help us with all the housework, Yeah,
you're just bragging now. Now it's too much. I don't want to hear anymore. Making us all feel bad.
We'll see when they're teenagers, right? Though, because that'll be interesting.
How do we start independent play when your oldest is 15, asking for a friend? No, I'm joking. I'm talking about me. No, totally kidding. Okay, so yeah. So okay, so let's sort of finish up by. I just want to ask you, where do you start? Whether, to give your kids a really good start with play, which leads into their academics, what is the best place to start here? Whether you are just about to have a baby or you already have kids, right? What do you do?
I would say reading, access to books, talking to your children. I mean, from birth, I talk to my kids as if they were real people. I narrate what I'm doing when they're younger. Oh, we're going to change your diaper, and here's a wipe. I'm going to spray it. And, oh, look at this cute pink diaper or whatever, and, oh, I'm making dinner and here's what I'm doing. And we just talk like they're normal. We don't, I don't want to say dumb it down, because I don't like that phrase, but we don't minimize what we're talking about.
Baby talk.
Yeah, we don't do baby talk, but even with, my 3-year-old, 5-year-old, we talk about complex things like the solar system, and we use the real words. We don't try to come up with cutesy little words to explain, photosynthesis. We say that and we explain what that is, and they ask questions, and kids will always just listening to their questions and helping them find the answers is the best thing that you can do, because that's following their lead. They're interested in right now. My kids are obsessed with bats. I don't know. So I'm like, okay. We have like a little bat house on our property that apparently was here before we moved in. And so I guess they're obsessed with bats. And my husband's like, oh, well, bats eat bugs and they're nocturnal and da, da, da. And he's explaining all this to them. And so they're like sitting there like amazed and they're taking it all in. And that's real learning. You know, it's like they're asking a question and you're giving them an answer. And if you don't know, you say, wow, I don't know. Let's look that up. Let's look that up. And then you go and you show them how to look it up and you read about it and you maybe watch a little documentary and you pull up some pictures and you just talk about it. And then you just surround them with books about everything under the sun. And I think that's the best thing is language exposure, reading, showing an interest in learning yourself. So like I said, if you don't know something, being okay with saying, wow, I don't have that information, or I don't know what that means. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what that word is. Like we have to look up how to say this word, or I have no idea how that gets electricity. Like, let's look it up, and sort of having that vulnerability, and just engaging in the learning process alongside your child. And I think that's the best thing that you can do. Just sort of having that passion for learning yourself is going to rub off.
So really, to simplify what you said, you're communicating with them, yep. You are listening to them, right? Taking them seriously. I mean, that's the other part of it. You've got to listen to what they say. They have a lot of really great things to say. And then like you said, look, if they're interested in something, let's nurture that interest. One of my boys was so interested in sharks and scuba diving. And yeah, we did the same thing. We just, surrounded him with information. Like, here's a show on sharks and here's Shark Week and, all this stuff. Right. So nurturing that, and that's really great. And those are really fundamental lessons for us to learn and to help with our parenting, growing our kids up, right? We've got to slow down too, so that we can be interested. And look, when our child puts their hand up and says, like, I'm interested in this, like, let's lean into that. Let's really listen to them and give them as many opportunities to learn, because the way we learn in school does not work for everybody. And it's kind of a broken system, but learning through play, learning through just being with your parents, that's where you can learn some seriously amazing life lessons, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally agree.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been so interesting. And look, you are available for parents if they need help with their playroom. They just need to understand, what to do. You have a course on how to have purposeful play. And again, you do help other parents one-on-one if they're looking for some support. So I think that's all really great. And you're setting a really beautiful example with the space that you have there. And coming from a place of being an educator as well, I think that really, really helps. So I just want to thank you for teaching us about playing, learning, and thriving, because they are all interconnected. And that's all what we want for our kids. We want our kids to thrive in this world. I don't know one parent that doesn't say they want their kids to thrive. That's what it's all about. And we're all here trying to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. While having some fun too, and loving on them and enjoying them, right? So that's great. Thank you, Alana. Thank you so much. I'll put all of your details in the show notes as well. Why don't you tell us just really quickly where people can find you? What's your website?
Website is playlearnthrive.com, and everywhere on social, I'm at PlayLearnThriveKids.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Alana.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robbin McManne, and if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my work, I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and